Statistically, things are not improving. They're getting worse, in fact, in some instances, and I think despite all the awareness, the fact that things are still not improving is very telling of how severe the situation is.
From your own personal experience, because you've talked in the past about how you've had to learn how to manage your own anxiety since you were a child, do you feel you're getting better at it? Do you know how to do it now?
Yes and no. There's still times when I'm caught off guard, but it's having that awareness and having the tools in the locker to be able to manage those situations best I can when they arise. I doubt there's a single person that hasn't at some time experienced anxiety. It's a very normal feeling. It's just when it becomes chronic, it causes problems.
You've spoken about taking antidepressants. You know, there's a stigma around that still, isn't there? But
There
how
is.
useful has that been?
For me, not very useful. I'm not still on them. I don't think I'll ever take them again, but that's not to say that they don't work for some people. Each situation is so unique, but that presents problems because quite often you've got GPs prescribing antidepressants, which is a problem in itself. They're not psychologists.
And is music still the best therapy?
Music is therapeutic, yeah, because, and I didn't realise this, there's a type of therapy called cognitive behavioural therapy, and a cornerstone of that is journaling, which is writing down how you think, feel, or what you observe. I didn't realise when I started writing music, I was essentially journaling.
Your most personal piece of music?
Good Night on my first album, which was partly about my great-grandmother. She basically wrote the chorus for me. Good night, God bless, I'll see you in the morning, was what she always used to say to me, and what I now say to my son, and he says back to me now.
Good night, God bless, I'll see you in the morning.
And a song called Today I Cried on my second album, which touches on depression and anxiety and OCD.
I cry, and I don't know why.
We're sitting in the middle of this art installation that is a sort of representation of what anxiety feels like. Does it feel to you like what anxiety feels like?
Yeah, especially the main piece begins as a monolith, and then as more people enter the room, it begins to separate and become more frantic, and there's more fragments of it. And I guess it's a visual representation of intrusive thoughts that can begin to fill your head, and all of a sudden it feels like there's far too much going on for you to possibly be able to manage how you're thinking at that time.
We've talked about mental health, but physical health, there's a sort of interplay there, isn't there? And do you think men find it harder to take care of themselves?
I think men are struggling to find their place. Quite often it's people just want from you whatever they need you to be at any given time, so it's be more sensitive, then it's man up. The phrase man up gets a really bad rap now, but as long as people are prepared to woman up as well, I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing, because sometimes we do have to be resilient, and it's that resilience that gets lost when I think there's this hypersensitivity that's encouraged.
That's really interesting, because there's been such a lot of talk in recent years about the need to share, the need to show your vulnerabilities, and in a way it seems to me that you're saying perhaps, you know, the pendulum maybe has swung too far, that we need to sort of channel that resilience, that kind of steeliness sometimes.
Yeah, it's important, but it's also important to recognise that it might require that resilience to get through something, but then what comes after the initial trauma is having to process that.
And you've talked about becoming a father. Has fatherhood changed the way you look after yourself mentally, physically? Has it become harder to look after yourself, or more important, or both?
I'd say both. It was more difficult in the beginning, just by the nature of having a kid that doesn't sleep through the night.
I mean, it's 15 years now since your father took his own life. Does that make fatherhood more challenging, that you don't have that role model?
Yeah, I think it does. And also that's something that I've dealt with so many times over in my life. And every time I think I've dealt with it, finally, there's nothing to go back to. It shows up in a different way, from a different angle. It's crazy, I can be in the middle of the most beautiful moment with my son and then overcome with sadness. And it's not just about sadness for my loss and my not having had my dad there. It's also about what he missed out on, because I'm sitting there thinking this is the best thing in the world.
So it's reopened that grief, really?
Yeah, it really has, but I'm trying to, as much as I can, welcome it and just allowing myself to feel what I have to, and to go through what I have to in order to not, you know, make my son a victim of what I've been through.
But today I cried and I don't know why.